Hello and welcome to GCSE Chemistry, topic C1, Atomic Structure in the Periodic Table. This tutorial will cover part 4, the periodic table. First of all, recap of the keywords. An atom is the smallest particle of substance. An element is a substance made up of the same atoms, and these are found in the periodic table. A compound is formed when elements join chemically. First of all, you'll need to know about the history of the periodic table. The first periodic table was created by Dmitry Mendeleev, a Russian scientist, in 1869. Back then, he discovered about 50 elements. There was no knowledge of atomic structure like protons, electrons, neutrons, so he arranged the elements according to their weight. He also put them in groups and used patterns in the properties of elements in that group. So, for example, their melting point or how they reacted. He left gaps because he knew there were elements, but they were yet to be discovered. But he made predictions about those missing elements based on the properties of the elements in the same group. And when people found these elements, then that proved Mendeleev's periodic table was valid because the predictions he made were correct. The modern periodic table looks like this, and you will be given a copy of this in the exam. You don't need to know it off by heart, you just need to know how to use it. The periodic table covers about 100 elements. Most of the elements are metals and they're found on the left-hand side, so in orange here, and the blue are non-metals. They're arranged in increasing atomic number, starting with number 1 for hydrogen, number 2 for helium, and then going across like this. The vertical columns are called groups, and the periods are horizontal rows. Each group of elements has similar properties, and there's patterns in these properties we'll look at in another tutorial. The group number. Well, the number of electrons in the outer shell of the atoms tells you what group it is in. So say, for example, an element has 1 electron in its outer shell, it would be in group 1. This is not the case for group 0, though. Group 0 has elements that have a full outer shell. So all of the elements in group 0 have 8 in their outer shell, apart from helium, which has 2, because that's the first shell. The period number tells you the number of shells, and each time you start a new period, it's another full shell of electrons. The question is to compare the modern and past periodic table. If you pause the tutorial and give yourself 10 minutes. So this question could be worth 3 or 4 marks in the exam, so it's important that we look at the differences and the similarities between them. Starting with the past periodic table made by Mendeleev, there was less elements, and also because they didn't know about atomic structure, they were arranged in weight or mass and knowledge of some reactions and patterns and properties. There was also gaps for missing elements where he made predictions. The modern periodic table has more elements and they're arranged in atomic number now that we know what atomic number is and what protons and electrons and neutrons are. They're arranged in groups with similar properties, but this time there is 8 groups and then the transition metals in the middle, and there's rows called periods. There's also some patterns that we can identify now. Group 1 gets more reactive as you go down, group 7 gets less reactive. The group number tells you the number of electrons in the outer shell, and the period number tells you the number of shells. You don't have to include all of this in your answer, but it's important to know the differences between the 2 periodic tables, both of which contained elements. So in summary, we've looked at the periodic table.